Hi everyone. Thank you for taking the time to make it to our project kickoff meeting tonight. It's so great to see each and every one of you in this room. Our project, as you guys have been told via email and interviews, will be to successfully launch our Starbucks Blonde Espresso in Korea. As you guys should know by now, Blonde Espresso has been one of our most successful espresso products in many years, as this is our first time introducing a different version of espresso since the existence of our Starbucks company. And with its success in the North Americas and also Mexico, the Korean officials decided that it's time to try this out in the Korean market. And as the Starbucks headquarters, we have decided that we can approve this plan and move forward with it. And thus, our project team has been formed. And I've also gotten a shot of blonde espresso for each and every one of you on your desks. So please help yourselves and take the time to sip on coffee and find some time to mingle with one another, as I'll assume that some of you guys haven't talked to each other or haven't been involved in other projects. To begin with, I would like to go through our table of contents. First, we will be discussing our project objectives. And second, we'll be doing introductions and showing you guys a layout of our team. And third, we'll be going over an expected project flow. And then lastly, we will end with a question and answer session so that you guys can ask any questions or concerns you may have had. So what is our project objective? So our main project goal is to obviously introduce blonde espresso in the Korean market. But as you are aware, right now blonde espresso is solely available in the North Americas, mainly the US and Canada and Mexico. So this will be our first time introducing the blonde espresso in a market outside of the Americas, outside of the control of the headquarters. And since with most international partnerships, we have a joint venture system, we would like to also add new iterations of the blonde espresso that specifically cater to the Korean market. We currently have the Americano, the iced lattes, the vanilla lattes, and flat whites that are made in blonde espresso form. But in Korea, we'd like to introduce at least two different drinks that are unavailable in the States. And lastly, our final goal is to be able to set a precedent for future international adoption of blonde espresso. So once we succeed in launching blonde espresso in Korea, we hope to gain some learnings and lessons from it so that on our next launch in a different international market, this would be a much smoother launch and that we would have a good precedent in place so that our project team can be replicated in many different versions. So now on to our project team introduction. If you look at the slide here, we have 4 quadrants with a finance team in the middle. We all know that finance is the basis of everything. Whatever we decide to do within our project, it still has to be within our budget. So you will be relying a lot on Mike here, who is the head of the finance department. So to be clear, we have not selected each staff members for each of the teams that are represented in this slide today. I have only selected department heads or team leads, and I have given the freedom to the team leads and the department heads to decide if they do need additional help, which employees they want to add on to the project team here. So that should be at each of your discretion here. So to start from the left, we have the head of espresso division, who is in charge of the taste, the product, and just everything behind the blonde espresso. They're in charge of both the regular espresso and the blonde espresso. And to our right, we have the product marketing team that's in charge of all sorts of marketing, not just to the consumers, but also to the media and press as well. And in business to business marketing, when we're trying to source our coffee beans or source different products that relate to blonde espresso. And then to the bottom left, we have the client solutions team, who is basically in charge of any sort of technical needs that you may have regarding the project, whether you need these blonde espresso products added on to the mobile order app, or in testing certain beta products or introductions on websites. You can always rely on Daniel on the client solutions team. And then to our right is the customer service team. These guys are the faces of our company, as they are the frontliners that talk to our consumers on a daily basis. So during the execution of our project, we'll rely on them a lot to give us feedback from our existing customers and also our potential customers as well. So they will be doing a lot of the analysis on consumer behavior and customer interactions. And as you've noticed from what I've just said, I've only mentioned Mike and Daniel because they are the single-headed team, whereas the rest of the teams have two folks involved. One is from the US and North America division, and the other is from the Korean division. So we have a head of espresso division from the Americas and a head of espresso division from Korea. And the same goes for the product marketing team and the customer service team. The reason why we have a dual setup is so that the Korean team and the US team can really coordinate and rely on each other to share their knowledge and share their experiences. So it would be a dual team setup. So Thomas and Sarah would rely on each other a lot, James and Jonathan, Marsha and Stephanie. And it will obviously require some hand-holding from the American side, which has more experience, but that should be the general vibe and the general team environment. So to move on to expected project flow, I have created and drafted a mock project flow, as I know that you guys also have a ton of ideas in your heads, but to just give you some guidance on basic landmarks within our project, I've identified 4 different stages. The first is to identify a similar Asian demographic targeted stores in the US, where we can basically analyze consumer behavior and gauge the interest and buying behavior of blonde espresso. So off the top of my head, a Starbucks store in Orange County or LA that has a lot of Korean presence or Korean American presence will be a good candidate. So our first goal is to identify certain stores that would be the best fit, that is very similar to the Korean demographic here. And then with those candidates, we would move on to the second stage, where we'll be analyzing the consumer behavior and collect learnings from these stores with heavily Asian traffic and see what we find here, whether that's their preference towards a certain drink within the blonde espresso division, or whether it's cleanliness or the store atmosphere or the knowledge of the baristas. We'll figure out all the details. Then on our third stage, we will basically identify a few Korean stores that exhibit that similar vibe with the US targets and beta test our Blonde Espresso product in the Korean market for the first time. And then with this experience, once we are able to gain all our findings um, and get all the exposure that we need, we will do a slow rollout to all Korean stores by 2019. That was the bulk of the presentation for today, and I will now open the floor to any questions or concerns you may have had over the couple days you've had since this project kickoff meeting. Thanks for attending.